Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do a one and done today. I haven't decided which series I'm going to jump into next week, so we're going to do a standalone today. And today's book is by Alix Nichols, and it's called Find You in Paris. We meet Diane, and she is at the office of Sébastien d'Arcy du Grand Tours du Saint Maurice. I took French in high school over 20 years ago, so yes, I am going to attempt to give you a little bit of a French accent. So enjoy. Sébastien is the oldest son of the late Count Thibault d'Arcy du Grand Tours du Saint Maurice and the inheritor of an estate that's estimated around 1 billion euros. So this is a perfume company, and basically Sebastian, okay, I'm just going to say Sebastian now. He just goes by Sebastian Darcy. He doesn't do the D apostrophe ARCY. He's taken the company from being number 3 to now number 1 in the perfume game. So he has surpassed what both his grandfather and father built. We don't know what has happened, but we do know that Diane is saying that this is the man that has done her father wrong. She says she's done some digging, but she hasn't been able to find anything that isn't already in the news. Apparently, he did have this woman that he was dealing with. She was the heir to a company as well, and they were really hot and heavy. He apparently was even supposed to propose to her, but then the woman abruptly dumped him. So that's the most juiciest thing she could find. But again, it's already public knowledge. So she's coming to his office to right a wrong. However, he's not meeting her because he's too busy. So after the receptionist, who she calls Pitbull, by the way, tells her twice that the meeting he has is running a little longer, she eventually tells her, hey, we can reschedule for December 12th, which is like 2 months away. And so she says no need, because apparently she knows where he's going to be later that night for an event. We fast forward 3 months, and we now are in the POV of Sebastian. You know how much I love that. So Sebastian is leaving the office, and he's talking with Octave, which is damn near his right-hand man. So when Darcy moved back into the family home, Octave had been the one that had helped him out the most. A lot of stuff had to be redone because it is an extremely old townhome. So he completely trusts Octave. So he gets in the car with his driver, and who I think his name, was it Greg? I can't remember. But he gets in the car with his driver, gives him an address, and when he gets out, he is where Diane works part-time, which is at a grocery store. She's a clerk. We find out that Sebastian has had a PI on her since she showed up to his event 3 months ago and smeared cake in his face. So this did make a couple of tabloids, their news. So he, of course, is wanting to know who this crazy woman is. And now he knows. She is the daughter of Charles Petit. Charles is a perfumer. He makes perfume. And he had 2 signature scents that Darcy wanted. And Darcy made him an offer of 50,000 euros. Charles declined. He felt his business was worth more than that. But the truth was the business was in a down spiral. So he was in a lot of debt. So he's not the best at business. So because he didn't do it, basically Darcy was able to snatch the business up. We don't have the exacts of how he did it, but he did something that allowed him to snatch this business up and not pay that much for it. Charles started drinking, and his wife wound up leaving him. He eventually had a stroke. So it's been super hard, and now it totally makes sense as to why she was at his office from the get-go. and why she wound up putting cake in his face, because she views him as the man who basically started the downfall of her father. Sebastian doesn't go straight up to her. He starts piddling around with batteries. She eventually comes up to him, and of course, it's like, "Why are you here?" And he's like, "I've been watching you for a while." So he knows that she's really close with her foster sister, Chloe. Chloe recently had gotten shot, and I was like, wow, that's dramatic. And she's been helping nurse Chloe back to health. Um, she's got a couple of friends that she works with. So he knows a good little deal about her life. So he asks if they can go somewhere and talk in private. She agrees. And of course, she's like, just because I'm agreeing to go with you doesn't mean that, you know, I'm going to agree to whatever you have to say to me, you know? And he's like, that's fine. So he takes her to this coffee shop, and he says, "Marry me." She, of course, looks crazy. She's like, "What are you talking about?" So he lays out a portion of his plan, which is they're going to date a couple months. She'll move into the townhouse, which is like the family estate. Then they'll get married, and like a couple of months after the marriage, or a month after, he'll cheat and she'll leave him. She's like, "Okay, why would I do this? Why are you even trying to do this?" He's not going to answer. He's like, "That's not your concern. Your concern is I'll pay you 50,000 euros if everything goes as planned, and I'll quadruple it if in the end what I want, my end result that I know about that you don't know about, happens. So I'll give you $200,000, a 200,000 euros check, you know?" And he's like, "And we'll call it even." And she, of course, at first was like, "No," but then, of course, she's like, "I'll think about it," because that's a good chunk of money. A couple of days have gone by. Diane is on her way to La Boheme to celebrate with her best friend, Ellery. So they're having to walk at first, then they get on a bus. Her friend's complaining for the most part because she likes to put her fake Chanel bag down. She treats it like it's real. So she wanted to get a cab so her purse would have its own seat. She's a trip. So then they wind up having to get off the bus because the bus is coming to a stopping point, and then they wind up having to walk the little distance to La Boheme. At some point, Ellery starts talking about this plan she's been working on. Okay, she wants to nab a billionaire, so she's been doing some real research about how she can get this done. So Diane is, of course, looking at her like, "Girl, like, are you serious?" But Ellery is dead serious. She has figured out where they hang out. She's trying to learn their interests. And Diane's listening to her, but still thinks, she is absolutely ridiculous. She, of course, has a bad taste in her mouth about rich people because of, what's happened to her. So to her, they're all bad people. They're narcissists. They're the worst things. So her friend immediately picks up on it and is like, "You're talking about Sebastian, And Diane's like, "No, they're all like that." Diane clearly thinks she's foolish for this, because Diane feels like money's not everything. Does she like money? Yes. But she would like to have enough to get by. She doesn't need it for like world domination. So they just have a different stance, on how they see money. And there's nothing wrong with that. Ellery is more so, "I'll do anything to get it." And I mean, I don't know. That is a little, I would kind of watch somebody like that a little bit more. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I'd be like, "You want money? How bad?" Like, because she was like willing to do anything. She would be a mafia wife. Like, she didn't care. She just wants to be at a certain level. She wants a certain amount of access. So, I don't know. We find out why they're doing this celebration. Diane wanted to bring her here because she just got a freelance gig with a magazine called Voilà Paris. And then apparently it's supposed to be like this women's magazine, but it's mostly just gossip. It's just a gossip mag. And it's not enough for her to quit her job at the market, but it is a step in the right direction because she, of course, she wants to be a photographer. That's what she wants to do for a living. So they also have an option where you can submit stories. So La Boheme is also, I forgot to say this, it's run by Manon and Jean. And Chloe is engaged to one of their friends or something like that. There's a connection there. And so when she went that day and put the cake in his face at the event, it was at La Boheme. But because she knows the owners, they didn't get mad at her because I think they knew why she did it. They understood it. They're not like pretentious, uppity types. So they were fine with it. They weren't mad at all. It's been 3 days since the offer, so she's been going back and forth about it, and she starts to think, you know what? What if I can get some real dirt on him by being so close to him and really destroy him? And that is what convinces her to do the deal. So the next day she goes to his office. He hands her the contract. He's all like, do you want me to go over it? She, of course, is like, school in France is free. I'm not an idiot, and he's like, no, she says, just because I work at a market doesn't make me an idiot. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I was just trying to be helpful. And that, of course, pissed her off because she does not want to see him as a nice person. So then he gives her an NDA to sign and tells her, basically take it home, review it. Any questions you have, we'll talk it over. We'll come to an agreement. So the timeline is supposed to be 2 months of dating. She moves in a month later to get married, and then he's waiting for someone to make a move. But that's as far as we know. We don't know who. We don't know why they're going to do something, but that is as much information as he will give her. So she's okay with the contract, but she does say that she's not trying to have sex with him. He wrote in the contract she didn't have to. However, he told her in public, I do need you to like kiss me and like be affectionate with me in order for this to appear real. So she reluctantly agrees to do that. He tells her again, look it over tomorrow. We'll talk about it then. So the next day she goes, picks up her father from physical therapy. He's been having to do that since he had the stroke. His speech is a lot better now. There's a woman there that he has to work with. She's kind of harsh, but hey, she helps him, the nurse. Then there is a woman that he helped create a scent for, and her name is Madame Hautbois. And he had asked her, if she would pretty much publicly say that, hey, Charles Petit is the one that helped me create my scent. Well, she went on a morning show and said that she had done it all by herself. And so, that credibility really could have helped him, but he got screwed over. He's, again, he's not going to get credit for that work. So she's very concerned about her dad. And he, of course, she, of course, is worried because she's about to enter into this agreement with the man that kind of started the destroying of the life. But I don't know if we can fully put it on him. Maybe I just don't want him to be guilty. I don't know. But at this moment, that's who destroyed her father's life. So that's what we'll leave it with what she says. She tried to weasel her way out of living with him, but he would not budge on that when they talked later that night, trying to hash out the agreement. She wanted to be able to tell her sister Chloe and or her best friend Ellery about what was going on, and he was like, no one else can know. The only person that knows about this is Raphael, who is his younger brother. That's it. He's like, the more people know, the more at risk the secret is getting out and exposing the plan. We find out he has a mother who lives in Nepal. I think her name is Marguerite, and she's like a Mother Teresa. She's, all about the charity work, but they don't really get along. So I'm like, what's the story with that? Um, she looks at the NDA, and it says that she can't talk about the fake relationship, but it does not talk or say, shall we say, that she can't talk about any secrets that she might find. So she's super stoked now because now she doesn't have anything to fully worry about. I mean, he still could come after her. It could always be like defamation or some crap like that. But I don't think she's really too concerned about that. It was more so not breaking that NDA. So their first outing as a couple is going to be to Raphael's 29th birthday party. Jean, who's one of the owners of La Boheme, and her husband Matt, he's a political guy. They're gonna be there, so that makes her happy because at least she's gonna know someone else there. So Raphael's party is gonna be on a private Greek island, and of course she's never been to a place like this. She's from the country, so they would call her a country bumpkin, and they literally call her that in the book. So this of course is absolutely crazy to her. She meets Raphael. He has two women. One looks like Scarlett Johansson, the other like Natalie Portman. He comes up to her. He's talking to her like normal. He's being nice, friendly. She's looking for Jean because she wants her comfort zone. She wants to find her, the person that she'll feel most comfortable with. We find out there's an older brother named Noah, but he's not coming to the party. According to Raphael, he never comes to anything. So it's like, ooh, I wonder what's up with that. So that's probably a juicy story. So Diane at this point can't wait to get back home and just barf because this is just too much excess. Party's in full swing. It's about 10 o'clock at night. She's talking with Jean and Matt. And he's kind of like, he's going to catch some slack for being here because he is a politician. Even though he's not doing anything wrong, it's still going to appear that way. He spent most of the day looking at solar panels and stuff, but no one's really going to believe that. And so then Jean asked her about her dad and, the situation with Madame Audois. And she says basically, what happened with the contract. She wouldn't give him any type of credit. And the problem with her father is he's an idealist. And it's not a good thing. And when you don't have the thought that this person could hurt me, and you don't put up any type of contingency plans, this is what happens. And you learn from your mistakes. That's what you're supposed to do, and continue not to make the same ones. But he keeps doing it because he wants to remain an idealist. So Darcy makes the comment, which is basically like, basically the road to destruction is full of assumptions. And he's not saying anything wrong, but because of who he is, because of what he has, and because of what happened, she does not like this comment, and she decides she's done for the night. So Jean offers her something because she was like, oh, my head's kind of bothering me. Jean offers her something to take, but she's like, no, I think it's just a night of rest will be good enough. Well, she takes this time to go inside and snoop around a little. She doesn't really find anything. But when she goes to one of the doors later on, it's ajar, and she hears a conversation between Raphael and Darcy. Darcy sounds drunk by now, and Raphael's saying that, your fake girlfriend, she's actually cute. And Darcy's like, what do you mean cute? Like, because she's from the country? And he starts saying how, she doesn't have any class. She'll never have it, just being fucking rude. I mean, I know that Raphael knows what the situation is, but you don't have to do that, you know? And so she, of course, is like, good. We both have the same view of each other. It still stung for her to hear it, but she's like, at least now she knows the truth. And it's just going to motivate her even more so to find some dirt on him. Because right now he is coming off as an elitist, and you know that pisses her off. The next morning, everyone's pretty much hungover. She didn't have to sit next to Darcy because his friend Laurent was next to him, and so she was thankful for that. She gets back home. She decides to tell her friend Ellery what's going on, or what she can tell her, as much as she can. So of course, when she tells the girl this, she's like, "You're a hypocrite," and she's like, "You gave me so much grief about it, and now you're dating a billionaire." But in all defense, I get what she was saying, but she didn't go looking for him, right? It's something that happened. I mean, I guess you could still say it's hypocritical, especially if you make the comment like like I would never deal with someone like that. I guess she could, but I feel it's more so just hateration that she done nabbed what you've been trying to get. That's all I think it is. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's what it is. So she agrees to forgive her. She just wants to be introduced into the fold. Because again, her goal is she wants that billionaire lifestyle. So she's like, okay, fine. She is thinking about how the hell she's going to tell her parents. She knows she's going to have to tell her dad. To tell her mom might not be that bad, and Chloe, but it's going to probably destroy the relationship she has with her father. And that worries her a lot. Because he's probably just going to stop talking to her. And all she can think is, you know what? Hopefully this will all be worth it. We switch back to Sebastian. It's now March. This is not his favorite month because it's kind of dreary. He and Diane have gone on multiple dates. He's taken her to New York to see a play because she had said she wanted to see one. He's really just trying to wine and dine her just beyond, beyond, beyond. And basically for her, she's like, you don't have to do all that. Like, you can scale it back. You know, I don't require all of that. This is strange to him because he's not used to women telling him that. So he does want her to upgrade her wardrobe because she tries to wear frumpy clothes. He can tell by when they've touched and hugged that she has a nice figure, but she's clearly wearing these clothes to try and deter him. But it's not, I don't think that's going to work. He knows he wants to see her in something more fitted. He's like, he doesn't know why, but he just knows he wants to see it. I'm like, you know exactly why you want to see that. He's getting sweet on her. That's what it is. So when they were on the private Greek island, she had to catch herself from staring at him. Because again, this is on both sides. There is a physical attraction and no one wants to admit it. They wind up going to a private kind of club, and it's like a nightclub but more exclusive. Couples are up dancing. He asked her for a dance, and by the end of the dance, old boy's dick was hard. He knew some paparazzi was going to be there, so they had this moment together. The paparazzi captured, and then she tells him, if we run out of here, they're going to think we're leaving to go fuck. While they leave out, they're in the car, her thighs against his leg. He's telling himself, I got to get a grip. His first thought is that when this is over, I am getting laid. It's been a while since he broke up with since the last relationship ended. I think her name was Veronica. They get upstairs. She offers him a drink. He takes it. This is kind of what happens after their dates. They either go back to her place or his place. She never stays the night at his place. And he only stays at her place for like an hour or so. Basically checks his email and stuff like that, and then he'll leave. So then she asks him again, like, has someone made a move yet? And she's like, when do you think they will do something? And he tells her a little bit of the story of what happened with his father and mother. So they were married. The father cheated on the mother, and The very next day after he cheated, the woman put the shit up on the World Wide Web. So clearly it appears like someone orchestrated that, right? Because normally someone wouldn't do that. They're gonna at least try and ask for some money or do something. But it was just boom, up. So the mother, she left, stayed in an apartment for probably like 6 months, and then she wound up moving to Nepal, and she took Noah with her, which is the youngest son. The father felt it to despair. He eventually started using drugs, and um, how many? I think it's maybe been 10 years. They found him dead. He had OD'd. So he thinks someone is trying to do the same thing to him based on what happened between him and Veronica, because it was just all of a sudden. It was like he's with Veronica, now all these beautiful, eligible women just start coming at him out of the woodwork. And he never slept with any of them, but because it was such suspicion, the woman was like, you know what? Basically, I'm getting out. Like, I don't believe that there's nothing going on. It's now April. Diane is in a car on her way to Burgundy to a castle, which has been in the family since it was built. Um, so even though she doesn't want to be in awe of this, she is. It is a little rundown on the inside. And we find out that this is actually Noah's home. He's the owner of this house. But again, he's never here. And again, an event's going to be here, but he's not going to be here for it. And neither is the mother. So her friend Ellery is going to come up. She's going to come up the following day because her father's 50th birthday is that day. So she's going to stay in Paris, and then she'll come out and they'll pick her up from the train station tomorrow. So he gives her a little sort of tour of the house, talks with its house manager. She seems like a really kind woman. She has tried to improve her wardrobe a little bit. She went on about a little new stuff. Nothing crazy, but just like nicer jeans and sweaters, more fitted. The dressy stuff she borrows from Ellery. She notices that when she dresses up, he seems to look at her very intensely. And him looking at her intensely does something to her insides. So she wishes she could find like some type of chastity belt, like to keep her, because she's starting to lose where she used to be able to just hate him, like, oh, I can't stand him. She's getting weak. They go on a little excursion to a cave called the Grotto. Dr. Mueller, who's a woman, she's absolutely stunning. She looks like a runway model. And Diane's first thought is like, this, why wouldn't he just choose her to do this? Like she seems like more of an appropriate fiance. Um, and then she starts thinking, well, maybe he'll probably try and have something with her afterwards. Once this charade is done. And this, of course, pisses her off. It's funny how she's had this whole conversation in her head. So then Dr. Miller comes up to Darcy and was just kind of like, can I talk to you about something? And he was like, sure, after dinner. They're supposed to have this big sit-down dinner, and all she can think about is, I cannot wait for Ellery to get here. They're at dinner, and she's having a little conversation with Penelope, who is Dr. Mueller. And Darcy comes up to her and is like, can I talk to you for a minute? So he pulls Diane aside and he gives her this explosive kiss. It is numbing to her. She feels it everywhere. And she's like, oh my gosh, I want this man. And when he pulls away, she's like in a damn haze and she's got to break out of it. So Raphael is talking and he's saying something about Monday. She doesn't know what they're talking about. Her brain is just so fuzzy right now. So she again tries to say to herself, you don't want him, you don't like him. But again, that shit's not working anymore. So then Darcy winds up offering for Penelope to stay the night at the castle because I guess where she's driving to is kind of far. And he's like, Jacqueline, the house manager, she'll set you up, get a room for you, anything you need. There's plenty of space. Diane wanted her to decline, and she realizes, I am jealous. And she tries to hate Darcy again. It's not working. It's the next day. Ellery's there, and Ellery had agreed to post nude for her, like tasteful nudes, um, at the castle. So she got her shots of her, and then Darcy comes in and he sees everything. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And Diane's screaming, like, get out. Ellery, however, is not bashful at all. She even bends over so he can see everything. I'm like, well, damn. Like, you one of those types? Because, I mean, I know she wants a billionaire, but she doesn't know this is a fake relationship, right? Like, that according to what you know, that is supposed to be your friend's man. So that to me was just extremely shisty. I didn't like that. I'm like, you not my type of friend. Cause so anyway, I digress. She leaves. So then Darcy's like, I didn't know. Well, when I say Darcy, I'm sorry, that's Sebastian. And I should have made that distinction before. And I like calling him Sebastian, but I think it was saying Darcy in the book, and that's what's in my head. So Sebastian's like, I didn't know you did nudes. She's like, yeah, they do pretty well. This is like my third time doing them with Ellery. So he was like, oh. And then she blurts out, would you pose nude for me? He agrees to everything except for he has to keep like his shorts on. She's like, all right. She starts taking some shots. Some shots. She's drooling, okay? And when she says something to him about showing just his ass, he agrees. He's like, one shot. But she took a couple. And she's like, it's just so, I have the different angles and I can decide which one is best. But the truth was, she was going to fawn all over those damn pictures. Diane's now back in the city. She's at the cafe. She's talking with Manon and Jean. And they're talking about love and stuff like that. And it's funny because she doesn't have a very romantic thought process when it comes to love. Like, she doesn't do the whole, happily ever after stuff because that's just not what she knows. She knows parents that are divorced. And we find out that she's engaged. She's now sporting the engagement ring. Now, this is going to be a critique for me. I would have liked to have read how he did it and his thoughts behind it. Also, her thoughts as it was happening. It could have been at least a chapter or half a chapter to tell us that. But we got nothing. And I didn't really like that. Because it was like, that was a moment I would have wanted to know. Just because they're both having these extreme attraction, to one another. And I just would have wanted to have known what they were thinking when that happened. So I kind of felt cheated. It was like, this book is fast paced and I'm okay with that. But it was kind of like, you could have talked more about this than you could about some other stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that was just my only critique about it. Because I felt like that was a moment we should have for surely read in this book. But I digress. A few days later, Diane's with her friends at La Boheme. And he's coming to get her. He was thinking about taking her out to dinner. He honestly just wants to spend some time with her. But the problem with that is that physically they are just extremely attracted to one another and they clearly want the same thing. They can both tell it on both parts. And so this is where it's going to get kind of a little dangerous, because this was supposed to be a very simple arrangement. So he goes and he's thinking it's a sports thing going on because there's so many people there. But it's a Eurovision, which is a singing, I think a singer-songwriter type of competition that happens, and everyone's into it. They treat it like it's a sports event. So because there are no seats, she's going to have to sit in his lap. So either, I can't remember if it was Gina or Manon, they went to fix him like a burger or something to eat. And he is absolutely happy about the fact that she's wearing the perfume that he bought for her. And he, of course, is having all these thoughts. He winds up getting hard. And now he wants to get out of here. And she agrees. And while they're in the car, they start talking. And I think he did the whole self-sabotage thing. He tells her, like, he's sorry for what he did to her father. And that he's trying to make things right through her. And so it's kind of like she understands people like him. He's the big bad wolf, right? He's going to crush people. But he admits that he went further with Charles. He found someone or a couple people that could make the exact same scent and sold it at half the price. Charles had no way of competing with that, and that pisses her off. But it also assures that nothing is going to happen tonight, and they both feel like that's probably for the best. A few days later, Diane's in her apartment. She's trying to figure out what exactly she's going to submit to put up at her exhibit at La Boheme. And she cannot decide. So Chloe had come over earlier, but she wasn't much of a help. She gets a knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and it is our boy, Sebastian. He appears to be a little drunk. He's got flowers in his hands and a bottle of vodka. We find out he has the vodka because he just bought a vodka company. And he bought the flowers because he thought he should bring his fiance flowers. So he's going to help her pick out photos for her show. So he went in and before he started picking, he kind of told her a story about what happened when his father died. So he was 23 years old when he was handed the reins. So this was like 10 years ago. And he knew his dad wasn't going to last that much longer because he saw how his dad was living, but he still hadn't expected for it to happen so quickly. It didn't freak him out that he was in charge, right? It didn't freak him out that he was in charge of people's trust funds. That didn't bother him either. What really got him was the fact that people's livelihoods were now dependent on him. And that kind of made him go into like beast mode. And he pretty much faked it until he made it. And they start looking at each other. They're having a moment. And she realizes she just doesn't have the capability to hate him as fast as she used to. After he tells that story, then he helps pick out the best photos for her. So then he picks up the camera and he asks her to pose for him, nude. And in her mind, she's thinking of all the stuff she should tell him, hell no, and all this type of stuff. But what comes out of her mouth is the question, why? And he says, basically, I want to know what you do. That's it, And he's like, I did it for you, so you should do it for me. And so she does. She takes off her panties, and at first, before she took them off, she had said like no and all this type of stuff. But then when he picked up the camera, he was like drooling at her. So then she said to him like, you gotta at least take a picture if you want me to like take my panties off. So he held the camera up. I think he took like one shot. And then he told her to put her hands against the wall and to bend her ass out. And then he was on her. He was caressing her. He's saying to her, I want you so much, Diane. And she wants him as well. He takes his pants off. He puts a condom on. He plunges inside her. He's telling her to come. She's telling him, don't stop. Please don't you dare stop. It is now the next morning. We find out they fucked all night. When he wakes up, she's already up. She's looking out the window. She's wearing his shirt. He wants to know so badly if she's wearing underwear, but he's afraid to ask her. And then she turns to him when she realizes he's awake, and she says that was a mistake. He had anticipated on her saying that. He was like, why can't we just enjoy each other while we do this fake relationship? And he says, are you afraid you're going to fall in love with me? And she looked at him with pure disgust. And he was like, well, damn. I guess that's not it. She tells him, it's just going to make it too confusing. So we just can't do this anymore. And so she then asks him, do I have to sleep in the same bedroom with you when we're at the townhouse? And he says, because she's supposed to move there in a couple days. And he's like, yeah, because the help is going to know. Like, you can fool your family and stuff, but, like, you can't fool the help. Like, they know everything that's going on in the house. So she relinquishes, and she's like, okay. And then she gets her clothes, and she's about to go in the bathroom, and she has on his shirt. I think she takes it off, and she kind of tells him, that won't happen again. And I was like, oh, my gosh. She's moved into his place. It's like the first or second day, and her and Sebastian are outside. It's late at night. They're having really good conversation. Him talking about, what he went through after his parents broke up and stuff. His parents just weren't really available. They were both having a midlife crisis, and it took them in two different directions. And they weren't too much concerned about the kids. So there's a 15-year-old who's Raphael and an 11-year-old Noah. And they kind of were just more so concerned about themselves. She didn't talk about her dad. No, she did. I think she did talk about her dad and her family. No, I think she didn't. She didn't talk about it. But she's thinking about it, and we find out that her father used to have a drinking problem way before this occurred. So one of the conditions that he had in order to be with the mother was that he had to stop drinking. So when everything went down, he started up again. So clearly, again, he can't be, Sebastian be the absolute reason for the downfall. It was going to kind of probably happen anyway, since his business wasn't doing that well. You know what I'm saying? Sebastian sped it up. We'll just say that. That's what I think he did. So we find out that, her mother was, trying to get him to, get another job, focus on something else. But he just wouldn't do it. He just wanted his company. And so they start looking at each other intensely, and then they start kissing, and before you know it, they're about to go at it again. He's telling her, when I get you inside, I'm going to lick like every part of you. And she's like, my toes too? And he's like, yep, every part. And she's like, you're trying to drive me crazy, but it's not going to work. But the truth is, he's already done that. She's gotten into a routine. She wakes up later, and Lynette, one of the workers in the home, they wind up having breakfast together because they like big breakfasts. Like, they don't do the little nibbling stuff, And so she decides to go snooping around Octave's room. She feels bad about this because Octave has been like really kind to her, really sweet, but she's run out of time and she needs some dirt. And that dirt, again, has just not been as easily accessible as she had hoped it would be. Now, I personally don't know why you would think that somebody with that type of a size of a corporation business would have something so readily available that you could find. I don't know. I don't see how she thinks that. So anyway, she's snooping around in his room. He looks like he has like a bunch of audio equipment, and she's thinking like maybe he broadcasts or something, does it secretly. She opens a drawer. There is a secret drawer, and it has a passport, and it has Octave, and the middle name is Bernard, and that's the family name of the Darcys. And she's kind of like, huh, that's weird, you know? But she's not thinking too much of it. That's it. She knew that I guess he had worked for the father, and I guess he was like, he's always been like very loyal. So she was kind of shocked to see that there was no pictures of either of them in his room. And I'm like, he could have been loyal, but that don't mean I don't gotta have pictures of you. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, he did work for him. You know. So I think something's up with him, but at this point, we just don't know what it is. They've gotten married. No, I'm not rushing through it. This is how it presents itself in the book. They told people they couldn't wait to get married, so they rushed off to an island with their closest, like her sister, her mom. She didn't have the guts to tell her dad about Sebastian, so Chloe did it for her. And of course, her dad is not talking to her. So of course he's not going to come. So even though it's a fake wedding, they spent the whole week fucking like crazy, to the point that she's sore down there. They haven't filed the paperwork yet, because I guess the whole thing is that'll make it easier for them to be able to get the marriage annulled. That's the whole goal. Chloe, of course, wants to know when they're on their way back, they're flying back. How did you go from hating him to loving him? She goes, it's a long story, but the problem is they've got a nice long route on the plane, so she's going to have to come up with something. Again, another complaint of mine. I would have liked to have read about the wedding from the two of their perspectives. Again, it didn't even have to be a full chapter. It could have been something, but something from both of their sides to say how they felt. Whatever conflicting emotions, whatever crap they were trying to tell themselves. Like, I would have liked to have read that. So again, I was a little pissy about that too. Like, that should have been a nice chapter or half a chapter in the book. I'm just saying, that's my little rant. So she gets back, she does some more digging, and she finds a hidden compartment. I said it wrong the last time. It wasn't a hidden compartment in Octave's room. It was just a drawer. This is probably what I was thinking about. There's a hidden compartment in one of the drawers in the house that she's found, and it's letters that are between Sebastian's mother Marguerite and his dad. And the dad and the mom is asking for the dad to send Raphael to live with her, because at this point, Sebastian's already an adult, and the father's refusing to do so. Then she drops another letter saying that you do realize I was pregnant before I met you. I said, oh shit. So apparently Sebastian is not his. She says Emmanuel's his father. And she says to him in the letter, she threatens him and says, either you send me Raphael or I'm going to have to tell Sebastian and destroy him. And this is when he winds up overdosing, because he apparently had taken a test and found out that Sebastian wasn't his. And I think it messed him up. And she realizes she has the dirt that she has been looking for. She goes shopping one day with Ellery, and Ellery's kind of like, I need to stop focusing on old money, and I need to look at some nouveau rich. I need to look at the new money, because looking at the old money hasn't been working out. Diane has been giving her opportunities to be in those spaces, but it's just not panning out. A breakthrough has happened. The woman, Madame Audois, she's gone on TV and said that Charles Petit he's one of the best perfumers in the area, and he was the one that helped her come up with her signature scent. And so Ellery goes, oh, that must have been what that phone call was that I heard Sebastian yelling at someone when I was at the estate. And she's like, what? She's like, yeah, he was threatening to sue someone if they didn't make it right. He said he had proof and he was going to sue. And so now she's like, it didn't make sense until now of what that all meant. So of now, of course, Diane's kind of like, oh, shoot, like, look what he's done for me, So Diane's going back and forth in her mind about the fact that she knows she's falling for him. She doesn't need for this to happen. Like, this is not a good thing. So Sebastian comes over with the gift. He gives her the top-notch lab equipment that she needs for her pictures and this really great camera. And she's like, this is too much. I can't accept it. He's like, but I want you to have it, And she's like, give me a real reason, like, why I should take it. And he says, because I think you take beautiful photos and I want to help you. And I don't want you to have to keep doing dangerous stuff to get shots. So her camera, it's not the greatest. And so sometimes she has to get on rooftops to capture different moments. And that's why he wanted to do this for her, on top of the fact we know he's falling for her as well. And so he says to her, when the contract is done, would you want to continue this? And she's like, what do you mean, like a real relationship? He says, I don't know if I call it that. He's like, let's be honest, you're not someone I would normally pick. These are the same type of issues that my parents had. They wanted different things. So I don't know how that will work, but I do know I want to keep seeing you. And she says, I think it's best if we don't. He has this, stone face that comes all across, and he's like, okay. And when he leaves, she decides to burn the letters that she found between his parents, because she feels like, that way no one can hurt him with that information. They go for a celebration for Matt. He won a seat, and they're having this party, and Sebastian is cozying up to this Miss Universe France. And so, of course, she feels jealous. And this apparently is a part of the plan. And he does talk to her about it. He's like, okay, it's time to put the plan in motion. But, of course, her mind is going like, damn, is he just going to kiss her? Is he going to fuck her? Like, everything's running through her mind. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, but at the same time, you did tell him you didn't want to continue anything with him afterwards. So at this point, if he fucks her, he fucks her. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't tell that. You can't say that if that's not what you mean. If that's not what you really want. Even if you're being a selfish prick and you say, I don't think we should continue it, but I'm not necessarily ready to see you with somebody else. I mean, just be honest. But telling him, okay, it's not going to work, for us, like, this is going to end, well, then you can't decide when the next thing starts, when that begins. You can't do it. So she's just going to have to feel some type of way. And so, the next morning, Diane wakes up and feels like she's had the worst hangover ever. And she's kind of like, I don't remember drinking that much. So she tries to move and her hands are bound. She's finally able to force her eyes open, and she's in some space she does not recognize. And she's thinking like, what the hell? And then someone comes in the door, and guess who it is? Octave. The first thing she says is, it's been you the whole time? He's like, yep. He doesn't know that. She thinks he knows that their marriage is a sham, because we find out he's been putting listening devices all over the house. So that's what she had saw. And I was like, he's got to be up to no good, but that's what that was. But he doesn't know that there is an arrangement at all. He was like, because she says to him, so our marriage is a sham. He's like, no, it's not. I'm not stupid. He's like, I see the way he looks at you, the way you look at him. You can't fake that. And his plan was to make it seem as if she left him. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So what he heard was them talking about drawing out whoever this person was. That's what he heard. he doesn't know about the fake stuff. So he doesn't believe it because the truth is it's been real. Like the looks, the touches, those have been real. So it is what it is. So he heard them talking about trying to lure out the nemesis, but that's all he knows. So we switch back to Sebastian. He's out with the model. He goes back to her hotel, but he doesn't do anything with her. He leaves at like 3 a.m. She's like, she's not going to believe you. And he's like, I'll take my chances. He tells her we'll catch up, but he has no intention of seeing her again. He goes back to his home. Immediately, he knows she's not there. He goes, looks, doesn't see her stuff on the dressers. He sees one of her suitcases is missing, and he's just baffled and he's hurt because she left. It doesn't make sense to him. He's like so close to the goal. Like, why would she just leave? So he's more upset about her leaving than about his plan unraveling. And he thought they really could have had a future. Like, he, didn't want to admit it to her, that he wanted a life with her. But that's also on his part where you should have been fucking honest, right? And you should have said to her, not just, I want to keep seeing you, but you should have said what you really wanted with her. Now, if you put yourself all out there and the person shits on it, then hey, it's on them, but you at least said it. But his response to her was like, I don't know if we wouldn't really work anyway. I wouldn't really normally choose you. Like, you saying all the fuck shit you should have never said, So both of them are just a freaking mess. But anyway, he, wants his life, wants babies with her, and he feels like such a pathetic fool. So then he hears someone downstairs. He thinks it's Diane, but it's Octave. And Octave, of course, is like, he asks him, have you seen her? And Octave goes, I thought she was with you. Now, this does seem weird because it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. But he just, doesn't say anything. He just goes back upstairs. Diane is starting to fantasize about how everything could have been differently if she had met Sebastian under different circumstances. How her father would have never had a stroke, his business ever going under. Again, the business was going to go under anyway because he's not good at business. She's trying to stay alert. She feels like she's at death's door. So then Octave comes in, and she had asked him, what were you planning to do with me? He says, I had planned on strangling you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so then she gets him to tell his story. So what happened was his mother had an affair with Bernard, which is the grandfather. And she apparently got pregnant. And she married someone else. Because Bernard chose another woman named Colette to marry. So he doesn't know for a fact if he's a D'Arce or not, but she did give him the middle name of Bernard. So we don't know if that's out of because you surely, you love this man, or if it's because it's his actual child. He thought that, eventually Bernard would acknowledge him as his son, but it never happened. He never got treated that way. So he's just full of fury. And he had promised vengeance on his mother's grave. But he hasn't had a test done to see if he's related. He's afraid that if he's not going to be able to live with himself with what he's done. So I'm just kind of like, but that's just fucking stupid. Don't you think you ought to be goddamn sure before you start on this vengeance? Like, it's probably, what vengeance? You don't even know if you're a fucking D'Arce. You don't even know. It's crazy. So before he's able to do anything to her, because he's walking towards her, the doors burst open, cops rush in, they throw him to the ground, and then Sebastian rushes over to her, grabs her. He's been crying, and he's like, oh my God, you're safe now. And he says, you're safe, mon amour, you're safe. So it's a couple days after she's been rescued. Her mom is like, oh my gosh, between you and Chloe, I need y'all to stay safe because I'm about to lose it. We find out her dad is doing well because after Madame Bois came out and said, that he had helped her, people have been flocking to him. He has raised his rates, so his business is due to get back on track. Actually, it might even be better than ever. Um, she asked him, when did you start to suspect Octave? And he says, well, he came home the night you were missing. You went missing at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so when I started calling everyone the next day, it was like no one knew where you were. So then I knew someone had taken you. Um, and so that's when he stopped watching the woman that he had gone on that date with, because he thought like, okay, she's possibly the culprit. And they started watching Octave, and they found out that he had bought this place an hour outside of Paris, and they started following him, and that's how they were to get to her so fast. So it's like, oh my gosh. And he feels really bad that he doubted everybody. Like, he was starting to think that his best friend Laurent was a possible suspect. And the whole time it was the one person he had absolute trust in. So that was really hard for him to swallow. So then of course they confess their love for one another. And she feels like, the problem is you're rich and I hate rich people. And he says to her, but do you think I'm a bad person? And she says, no, I don't. I know you're a good person. And he tells her then, he's like, I want to have babies with you. I want a partnership with you. He doesn't want to do a prenup. And I'm kind of like, now you crazy as shit. Because I'm sorry, it's not that much love in the world. I'm sorry. You still have what you have. And because she doesn't want your shit, she shouldn't have a problem signing it. So I'm not with that, oh, you love me, you should trust me. It's too much fucking money. You need to sign some paperwork. And listen, if you don't want it, it's not going to be an issue for you to sign it. And if you want to show this undying love, then you can make some stipulations in there where she's taken care of a certain way. I mean, that's the best we could do, I think. Anything else, you're crazy. So he tells her, he asks her, will you stay married to me? He still hasn't sent the paperwork to the consulate in Miami, because I guess they must have went to the islands close to there. And he's like, that way we'll actually be married. We'll just stay married. And so that's what they're going to do. He'll send it in and they'll just stay married. And that's how it ends. I thought this was a really cute read. I liked it. The only thing that pissed me off was not having the details of that engagement and that wedding. I would have liked, like I said, it didn't have to be this massive long chapter. It could have been half a chapter. But I would have liked to have known what they were thinking at the time that it happened. Whether it was Diane thinking, wow, if this could be real, how magical it would be. Him thinking, wow, I wish I really was doing this. You know what I mean? Just like I would have liked to have known what they were thinking. So I feel kind of robbed of that. That's my only gripe. Everything else was good. I liked the suspense. It was a great read. What did you all think of it? Let me know. Drop down in the comment section. If you have some ideas for some series, please drop those down in the comment section as well. And eventually I will look into them and get to them. Stacey Ann, I still haven't forgot about you, girl. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, that link is going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.